I never believed that money could ruin someone's life. I used to think money solved problems that only happened to other people, until one Tuesday morning when I looked at my phone and saw a number that should never have been there, $5 million. It was sitting in my bank account. For a few seconds I couldn't breathe. I refreshed the app. The balance didn't change. I closed it, opened it again, $5 million. Even now, almost 2 years later, I still remember how quiet my apartment felt. The coffee machine was running in the kitchen. Cars were passing outside. Everything looked completely normal, except my life had just changed forever. My name is Daniel. I'm 31 years old. At the time, I worked as an accountant for a small construction company in Chicago. My life was painfully ordinary. I rented a tiny apartment, drove a 12-year-old Honda, worked almost 60 hours every week. My biggest concern was paying rent before the end of the month. Winning the lottery seemed more realistic than seeing $5 million in my account. The first thing I did was check the sender. There was no name, only a transaction reference and the words international wire transfer. That was it. No message, no explanation, no email, nothing. I convinced myself it had to be a system error. Banks make mistakes. Apps have bugs. Maybe the money wasn't even real. I logged into my account using my laptop instead of my phone. The balance was exactly the same, $5 million. My hands started shaking. I walked around my apartment for almost 20 minutes. Every few minutes I opened the app again. Every time the money was still there. I wanted to tell someone, my brother, my best friend Kevin, even my mother, but something stopped me. Maybe it was fear, maybe it was greed, or maybe deep down, I already knew that nothing good ever begins with $5 million appearing out of nowhere. Around 9:30 that morning, I finally called my bank. The woman who answered sounded cheerful until I explained why I was calling. There was complete silence. I could hear her typing. Then she asked me to repeat the amount. I told her again, $5 million. Her voice immediately changed. She placed me on hold. 5 minutes passed. Then another employee answered. This one introduced himself as someone from the bank's security department. His voice was calm. Very calm, too calm. He asked me several security questions. Then he said something that I still think about almost every day. Daniel, whatever you do not touch that money, not even $1. I laughed nervously. I told him I wasn't planning to. He didn't laugh. Instead, he lowered his voice. There is something unusual about this transfer. We are investigating it right now. Please keep your phone with you. Someone may contact you very soon. The call ended. I remember sitting on my couch, staring at the wall. My coffee had gone cold. I had no idea that the worst part hadn't even started. About 15 minutes later, my phone rang again. It wasn't the bank. It was a private number. For a moment, I thought about ignoring it. I wish I had, because the first sentence I heard changed everything. Daniel, we know you called the bank, and that was your first mistake. I couldn't say a word. My mouth was dry. My heart was beating so hard that I could hear it. The man on the phone didn't sound angry. He didn't sound nervous either. He sounded patient, almost polite, as if he already knew how the conversation was going to end. I finally managed to speak. Who is this? There was a short pause. Someone trying to fix a very expensive mistake. What mistake? The money. It was never supposed to reach you. I looked at my bank account again. The balance was still there. $5 million. If this is some kind of joke, stop calling me. It's not a joke, Daniel, and if you listen carefully, both of us can walk away from this. I stood up and locked my apartment door without even realizing I was doing it. What do you want? Nothing complicated. We need you to send the money back. I already called my bank. They told me not to touch it. Another long silence. Then he laughed, not loudly, just enough to make me uncomfortable. Of course they did, because they don't know what they are dealing with. Neither do you. I didn't answer. He continued. Within the next few hours, you're going to receive more phone calls. Some of them will claim they are from the police. Some will say they are from the bank. Someone may even knock on your door. Don't trust any of them. Only trust me. I almost hung up. Before I could, he said something that froze me. Your mother still lives on Pine Street, doesn't she? Every muscle in my body went stiff. I had never mentioned my mother. Her address wasn't connected to my bank account. How do you know that? He ignored my question. She's usually home alone in the mornings. Right, I shouted into the phone. Who are you? Leave my family out of this. His voice became cold. Then do exactly what I tell you. The call ended. I immediately called my mother. She answered after the third ring. Everything sounded normal. She was watching television. She asked why I sounded out of breath. I almost told her everything. Instead, I lied. I told her I had a strange feeling and wanted her to keep her doors locked for the rest of the day. She laughed. "Daniel, you worry too much." Maybe I did, but something inside me refused to calm down. About an hour later, there was another notification on my phone, not from the bank, an email. There was no subject line, only one sentence: "Look outside." I slowly walked to my living room window. Across the street, a black SUV was parked near the sidewalk. The engine was running. The windows were completely dark. As I watched, the driver's side window rolled down just enough for someone inside to raise a phone. A second later, my own phone started ringing. The screen showed another private number. I didn't answer. The SUV remained parked for another 30 seconds. Then it slowly drove away. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about the money anymore. Someone was watching me, and somehow they always seemed to know exactly where I was. I didn't go to work that day. I called my manager and told him I wasn't feeling well. It wasn't entirely a lie. I felt like I was losing control of my own life. Every sound outside my apartment made me look toward the window. Every vibration from my phone made my stomach tight. Around 2 in the afternoon, the bank called again. This time, it was the same man from the security department. "Daniel, we need to ask you a few more questions. Have you told anyone about the transfer?" "No." "Has anyone contacted you asking for the money?" I hesitated. Then I remembered what the stranger had said. "Don't trust anyone but me." For a second, I wondered if the person calling me now was even from the bank. "How do I know you're really from the bank?" There was a brief silence. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. "That's a smart question." He gave me a verification code and told me to open my banking app. The exact same code appeared on my screen. Only then did I relax. I told him everything: the phone calls, the threats, the message about my mother, the black SUV outside my apartment. He didn't interrupt me once. When I finished, he took a deep breath. "Daniel, you need to leave your apartment immediately. Go somewhere public, somewhere with a lot of people. Don't go to a friend, don't go to your family. And whatever you do, don't tell anyone where you're going." "Why?" "Because we believe someone has access to information they should never have." "What does that mean?" "We don't know yet. But until we do, assume every phone call, every email, and every message could be part of this." I packed a backpack in less than 2 minutes, a few clothes, my laptop, a charger, my wallet. As I reached for my car keys, someone knocked on my apartment door. 3 slow knocks. I stopped breathing. Nobody ever visited me without calling first. The knocking came again. Then a man's voice spoke through the door. "Daniel, it's the police. We just need to ask you a few questions." I walked toward the door as quietly as I could. I looked through the peephole. 2 men were standing in the hallway. Both were wearing dark jackets with police badges hanging around their necks. Everything looked real, almost too real. One of them looked directly at the peephole. Then he smiled, not a friendly smile, the kind of smile that tells you he knows you're watching. My phone vibrated. It was the bank. I answered in a whisper. "Thayer here." "Who?" "The police." The man on the phone spoke immediately. "Daniel, do not open that door. We have not sent anyone to your apartment." My blood ran cold. The 2 men knocked again, this time much harder. Then one of them shouted, "Daniel, we know you're inside. Open the door right now." I stepped back as quietly as I could. Every instinct told me to run. The problem was there was nowhere to go. My apartment was on the 4th floor. The only exit was the front door. The same door those 2 men were standing behind. The knocking became louder. Then it suddenly stopped. The silence was even worse. I whispered into the phone, "What do I do?" The man from the bank answered immediately, "Is there another exit?" "Only the fire escape." "Take it now." I grabbed my backpack and rushed into the bedroom. The fire escape was just outside my window. My hands were shaking so badly that I almost dropped my phone while opening the window. The cold air hit my face. I climbed onto the metal platform. Just as I pulled the window closed behind me, I heard my apartment door crash open. They were inside. I froze. The bank employee was still on the line. "Daniel, keep moving. Don't look back." I climbed down as fast as I could. By the time I reached the alley behind the building, I was completely out of breath. I didn't stop. I kept walking until I reached a crowded shopping center. Only then did I sit down. For the first time that day, I felt safe. About 20 minutes later, 2 real police officers found me. The bank had contacted them after losing my location during the call. They asked me everything, from the first bank notification to the men breaking into my apartment. When I finished, one of the officers looked at me and said something I will never forget. "Daniel, the money was never meant for you. You were chosen. Chosen." That word stayed with me. The investigation lasted almost 8 months. The money belonged to an international criminal organization that had been moving millions through hundreds of bank accounts. Mine had been selected because of a stolen database that contained thousands of ordinary people's banking information. Someone entered one wrong digit during a transfer. That mistake sent $5 million to me instead of another account controlled by the organization. The men who contacted me were trying to recover the money before authorities could trace it. My apartment had been watched for days. My phone number had been obtained through leaked personal records. Even my mother's address had been found online. In the end, every dollar was returned to its rightful owner through the legal investigation. I never touched a single cent. People often ask me if I wish I had kept the money. The answer is no, because for 8 months I barely slept. I changed apartments. I changed my phone number. I even quit my job because I couldn't focus anymore. $5 million looked like a miracle, but it became the most terrifying experience of my life. Sometimes the things we wish for the most arrive in ways we could never imagine, and sometimes they cost far more than they are worth. If I learned one thing from all of this, it's that not every unexpected gift is a blessing. Some of them are simply disasters that haven't revealed themselves yet. If you woke up tomorrow and found $5 million in your bank account, what would you do? Would you call the bank immediately? Would you believe it was your lucky day? Or would you be tempted to keep it? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one.